Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm gonna be planting a small herb garden on my balcony. And as most of you already know, my balcony doesn't receive a lot of sunlight. It's in the shade for most part of the day. It only gets a couple of hours of sunlight in the morning. So I want to share with you a few ideas on what herbs can you grow in part shade. I'm also going to talk about full shade because probably some of you have balconies that don't receive any direct sunlight at all. So we are going to talk about full shade, we are going to talk about part shade. I'm going to show you what herbs I chose for my balcony for this summer. And then obviously I will show you how I'm planting them, so what herbs I mix together in one container and what herbs I don't mix with other herbs. What potting soil I'm using, and then I will share with you a few tips on how to grow herbs successfully in containers. So let's begin. Okay, so without ado, let's jump straight into the topic and let's talk about options. What options do we have? And let's start with the shade garden. So a shade garden would be a garden that receives between 0 and 3 hours of direct sunlight. But obviously having 0 direct sunlight and having 3 hours of sunlight, that's actually a lot of difference. Like those 3 hours can make a difference when you grow edible plants. So if you do not receive any direct sunlight at all, if your garden is in the shade for the entire day, you will have to find a really bright spot on your balcony. Not in the deep shade, not somewhere hidden in the corner, not behind other larger plants or behind some shelving you need under the table. Try to find a bright spot, and that's where you'll place your herb planter. But then if you do receive just a little bit of sunlight, even if it's just 1 hour, even if it's just 30 minutes, use that opportunity and place your herb planter strategically in that spot to receive as much sunlight as possible. Okay, so what herbs can you grow in the shade if you don't receive any direct sunlight at all? You can definitely plant parsley. Parsley will do really well in the shade. As I said, as long as you provide bright indirect sunlight, parsley will grow really well. Then similar to parsley is coriander. Obviously it looks similar, but it tastes way different. Then you can plant chives. Chives will also do really well. And fourth herb is sorrel. Sorrel kind of looks like spinach and it has like a lemony sour flavor, but this can also grow really well in the shade. So parsley, coriander, chives and sorrel are the 4 herbs that you can safely plant in the shade and they will grow really well for you. Okay, so now let's move on to part shade. Part shade means you do receive some sunlight, a few hours of direct sunlight, and this opens up more possibilities. So obviously you can still plant those 4 herbs that I just spoke about, parsley, coriander, chives and sorrel, but you can also add, for example, mint. Mint will grow really well in part shade, and the great thing about mint is that there are so many different cultivars. You have a peppermint that is really great for infusions, then you have those more sweet mint that are better for desserts and for like summer drinks, and there are also like flavored mints. I'm really excited because I just picked up some of those flavored mint varieties that I'm gonna show you in a moment, but there are a lot of different fun mints to try. There's chocolate mint, there's pineapple mint, there's apple mint, so you can experiment with those as well. Another herb that will grow really well in part shade is melissa. Melissa is a lemon balm. It looks similar to mint and it grows similarly, like it has the same growing habit. I planted it last year and oh my goodness guys, it exploded. It literally took over the entire place. Like I planted it in a galvanized tub and it took over the entire tub and it started to spill on the floor. I had so much lemon balm that I could, I dried it up and I had like 2 large jars full of dried lemon balm to use in infusions later on. So lemon balm is great for part shade. And the last herb that you can plant in part shade is basil. Green basil does really well. It does exceptionally well in part shade with only a few hours of sunlight. Okay, so let me show you what herbs I'm planting on my balcony this season. I don't plant a lot because I don't use a lot of herbs. I just like a few herbs and I like to have them all the time on my balcony. A lot of them I have to bring home and grow them indoors over winter. Like for example basil or chives or mint. I'm gonna take some cuttings and bring them indoors at the end of the season. So yeah, I grow parsley. Parsley is a must-have for me. I don't like coriander, but parsley is a must-have. Then I have some chives. I have basil. As I said, basil does really well in part shade. And then I have 2 different types of mint, and mint is a perennial herb, so it actually is really winter hardy. You can just plant it on your balcony. It will die back in winter, but then it will come back for you in the spring. So you can treat it as a perennial plant, though I like to experiment with different mints and every year I grow a different kind. So I usually treat them as annuals. but this year I think I'm gonna keep both of them because I'm really excited about them. So here I have a chocolate mint, and I'm really excited to try it in some drinks, like hot drinks with cacao and stuff like that. And then I have a pineapple mint, which I'm gonna use in some summer cocktails and summer drinks. And not only it has an amazing flavor and it smells amazing, but it also has variegated leaves. So not only do they look beautiful, but they also serve culinary purposes. So that's a win-win situation. Okay, so I'm gonna be using this wooden crate as my herb planter today. I previously had some arugula and loose leaf lettuce in it. I have harvested most of it already. So I'm gonna just remove this, and I'm gonna keep the soil because it was a fresh soil in the spring. And the wooden crate, before I planted anything in it, I cleaned it and I sprayed it with a clear wood preservative to prevent it from rotting out and absorbing moisture. So the only thing that I am gonna do is I'm gonna change the plastic bag inside, because the one that I chose previously was a little bit too small. So I'm gonna put a larger plastic bag. I'm gonna cut drainage holes at the bottom and put this old soil back into this wooden crate. Alright, the container is ready, it's filled with soil. I'm gonna cut the excess plastic at the very end. And now, what herbs can be grown together and what herbs shouldn't be grown together? So if you have a sunny balcony and you're growing like Mediterranean type herbs like oregano, thyme, rosemary, sage, lavender, all of those can be grown together because they require the same growing conditions. They like sunny location, they like well-draining soil, so they can be totally planted together. The same goes for shade. For example, basil, chives, parsley, coriander, they can all be planted in the same container, no issue. The only two plants that should not be planted with other plants in the same pot, and they should not be planted in ground, directly in ground either, are mint and melissa, so lemon balm. Those guys, they are so invasive, they are just gonna take over the entire space. They propagate by underground rhizomes, so they're gonna grow like this, and then they're gonna pop up everywhere. From the place where you planted them, they're just gonna spread all around, and that goes the same for containers. If you plant mint or melissa in containers with other plants, those herbs, they're just gonna take over the entire space. They are gonna overcrowd your other herbs, so your other herbs will not receive enough sunlight, they will not have enough space to grow. So these are very competitive. Do not plant them in the same container with other herbs. Plant them, ideally just plant them on their own. But that being said, I am gonna try a little experiment this year, because I always try to find some unusual solution for growing plants in pots. So I do want to plant all of my herbs in this one container. I want to contain my herb garden in one place. So what I am gonna do, I am gonna plant mint in its separate container, and then I'm gonna bury that container inside of this wooden crate. But obviously, if I let this drainage hole like this open, the mint is gonna find its way out. It's gonna grow out the drainage hole, and it's still gonna pop out from all possible directions. So what I am gonna do, I brought here a few pieces of broken terracotta pot. So I am gonna cover the drainage hole inside with a few pieces of terracotta pot. The water will still be able to evacuate because the terracotta has very porous structure, so the water can evacuate through the walls of the terracotta container. So the roots can't escape, but the water still can evacuate through the walls of the terracotta pot, and even through the drainage hole as well, because water will find its way out. So that's what I'm gonna try. We'll see how that works. These are quite small containers for mint, but that's okay because I do want to contain it in a small container. I don't want it to grow like enormous. Okay, and now for the potting mix, I'm gonna use the usual light mix by Playground. It's a multi-purpose potting mix with added perlite. And you know how I always say that potting mix should be really good quality, it should contain organic matter, and if it doesn't, you should add organic matter, ideally different types of organic matter. Don't do it with herbs. The richer the soil, the worse they will grow. If they grow in poor soil, they are gonna be stronger plants. Actually, they are going to be more resistant to all kinds of disease and pest and weather conditions, and they also going to have a better flavor and better aroma. So don't plant them in rich soil. Just choose a multi-purpose, either peat based or peat substitute with added perlite or sand. because the potting mix has to be really well draining. Herbs, they like moisture, but they don't like to be standing in moisture. So choose good, well draining multi-purpose potting mix for your herbs. So I'm placing broken terracotta pots, and as you can see, the terracotta, because it's not flat, it still allows water to evacuate, even though the drainage hole is closed, let's say. So I'm just gonna insert them here, somewhere in the corner. And once the herbs start to grow, they start to fill out, we won't even see those terracotta pots in this wooden crate. So obviously don't use plastic pots for that purpose. If you are gonna do something similar, don't use plastic pots, because as I said, the advantage of terracotta is that it can release moisture through its walls. Plastic will not release moisture, so there's a risk that your plants are gonna get waterlogged. Okay, so here is my finished herb garden. I really like how it turned out. We will see how that grows. I think it should be fine. As I said, in the worst case, I can always take those mints out, but I don't really see that it will be an issue. So now let's talk a little bit about maintenance, how to grow, how to take care of those herbs throughout summer season. Okay, so as I already mentioned, it's really important to plant your herbs in a well-draining potting mix that contains either perlite or grit or sand. If your potting mix doesn't have it, it would be a good idea to buy yourself a bag of perlite or to just find a bit of sand and mix it with your potting mix, because herbs, they like moisture, but they like a lot of water in one time. They like to have a good drink, and then they like to release that water. You know, they don't like to be standing in water. But herbs like these, those that have larger leaves, like mint, like basil, parsley, those will require more water than, for example, those Mediterranean herbs like thyme or sage and lavender. They have shorter leaves, and they are specially adapted to withstand heat and drought. For example, you know, they have glossy leaves, they have smaller leaves, so they don't dry out and they don't wilt as quickly as those that have very soft, very large leaves. So these will require more water, and you will probably need to water them every single day in summer. Ideally, you wouldn't wait until they wilt. You will just, you know, check if the soil starts to be dry. If the top layer of soil is dry, then definitely give them a good soak. Now, as for fertilizing, you know, I always say fertilizers are important. They are plant food. Your plants need those nutrients, those minerals contained in fertilizer to grow healthy, to develop properly. But that doesn't really apply to herbs, because herbs, as I said, the richer the soil, the worse they will grow. If they are grown in very rich soil, they will become really weak. They will be more prone to pests, to diseases. They will also lose their flavor, lose their fragrance. So it's best to grow them in poorer soil, so do not bother fertilizing them. I never fertilize my herbs. I might give them, like, you know, 1 dose or 2 doses of fertilizer every now and then, but I do not fertilize them regularly. It's best to not fertilize them. Just make sure that you are watering them frequently, and they will be fine. Growing herbs is really easy. It really doesn't require much maintenance. As I said, you just have to keep up with regular watering, and you don't even have to fertilize. But one last thing that is quite important to remember is that at some point in summer, your herbs will start to flower. They will start to produce bloom stalks, and if you allow those bloom stalks to develop, if you allow your herb to flower and then to set seed, that's going to change the flavor of your herb, and that's also going to affect the way it grows. It's going to grow less vigorously. So it's really important to pinch those blooms off as soon as you see them. Okay, so now I'm just gonna water my herb container, but that's gonna be it for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed learning a little bit more about herbs, and that it gave you some ideas on what you can plant on your shady terrace or shady balcony. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!